Hello there guys, what is going on? SonOfChelsea back here again. I have to say, incredible ending to a game that was going in a direction that we're all kind of used to. I thought I was going to be sitting here discussing another 1-1 draw, at worst a late defeat, but then a shot from the heavens, a cold shot from Conor Gallagher that is kind of written in football lore, isn't it, that it was going to happen. Just incredible moment of inspiration and quality that Chelsea have so desperately needed at this point. It's not like there was nothing in today's game that would have been positive to speak about, but if it, you look at that goal, you look at the moment, you look at what it means for that player individually, but also for Chelsea and for Graham Potter to get his first win as Chelsea's head coach in his first Premier League game. It gives the club and hopefully all of us a much needed boost, because things haven't been that bright at Chelsea this season. There haven't been many moments like that, and hopefully those are those character building moments that things are going to be built on in the coming weeks and months under Graham Potter. And also I think for Conor Gallagher, it's such a massive moment in his Chelsea career, particularly and ironically at the place where he had such success last season. I think, again, there were encouraging signs today in terms of the way Chelsea attacked, but there were concerns going the other way. And I think it comes back to a very similar conversation we've had over a number of coaches, and I don't really want to bore people with going through kind of similar talking points that we have for a lot of the time, but they are relevant. And I think that Potter got it right in the second half with his subs to kind of nullify that problem. But there were positives. Let's get into the team. Before we do, make sure, guys, hit that like button. It helps new people find the channel. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the uploads on the channel. But let's get into the team lineup. So only two changes from the team that started against Salzburg, and that was Fofana coming in for Azpilicueta and Ben Chilwell in for Marc Cucurella. We moved away from a back three. And the interesting thing to me about this lineup, as you can see on your screen now, was today it was a lot more conventional. I think, given the debates around Sterling, kind of Potter being this very flexible coach, I think some of us were kind of thinking, what's he going to do? It's going to be kind of this wild formation. At times in the first half, it kind of looked like a lopsided 4-2-3-1. There wasn't really a left winger playing. That slightly changed in the second half. That changed a lot in the second half, actually, because I think Sterling kind of drifted over into that area a lot more, and Mount did as well. But it felt a lot more conventional today, like seeing the four, seeing Reece James and Ben Chilwell as just normal fullbacks. You had Jorginho and Kovacic as central midfielders. Mount and Havertz were kind of playing in a box midfield type role where I'd say they were kind of number 10s behind, of course, Pierre-Emerick, Aubameyang. So there wasn't any wacky stuff today to kind of really dissect. But as I say, there were pros and cons in that first half. Going 1-0 down in that fashion, I think individually, I just think Fofana there has to be more commanding. Really poor. Just, it looks so passive. I hate seeing goals like that where the whole defence just kind of shrugs their shoulders, and it felt like it was so easy for Chelsea to get played around. And I think that does link to, central midfield. Again, there was just such a lack of protection in central midfield whenever Chelsea lost the ball. I think I have to speak about him, Jorginho. I think, I'm not going to blame the player individually, because we know what he is at this point, and we know what he can and what he can't do, and why Thomas Tuchel was so good in protecting him in the sort of old 3-4-3. And he's been asked to press up high. We're seeing this today, and I understand it. I like it, because you have to press as a collective unit. You can't have one player just not doing it. But I think it was similar to the problem that Lampard had when he asked Jorginho to really press up high. We know his mobility issues, and just a sense across the team, we lack profiles in that area to be really physically dominant. And listen, as I say, this is not just a Crystal Palace away problem today. This is kind of a wider scale problem that Chelsea haven't resolved for a number of years under a number of different coaches, and hopefully we will see that rectified. I just find it interesting to me, because in the second half, I just want to jump forward to the second half before we get to the positives of sort of attacking. When he made the change to bring off Jorginho, which looked like maybe it was enforced, he could have brought off Kovacic for Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and kind of went to, it really was kind of Kovacic and Ruben as kind of a double six effectively. I think it worked a lot better, because suddenly Crystal Palace, which they're so dangerous at with the speed of Zaha, the speed of Michael Olise, Eze too, and of course Odsonne Édouard, I think had had a decent game, had decent moments throughout it. It was just quite simple for them to knock a ball round the back of our defence and really exploit Thiago Silva. We'll get to him as well, because of course there is a massive sense of fortune in that first half that I'm sure is going to be dissected heavily by Match of the Day and also Crystal Palace and their supporters. I understand why. So yeah, we go 1-0 down. It's a terrible start, and to be honest, we could have been 2-0 down. I believe it was Eze has a shot from a short corner that Kepa maybe parries away. There's another shot from distance that Kepa has to parry away. Just organisation wise, when we were getting the ball, we were getting bodies forward, and there was no problem with that. I like that. Then that's, if you've been watching the channel long enough, you know that's kind of a criticism of mine, that I feel like we're not helping ourselves when we get inside the box, that a ball comes in, say, usually from Reece James or Ben Chilwell out wide, and we're so outnumbered against defenders. You know, you have one attacker against three, and it's like you're not helping yourself. There was a moment in the first half, and there were moments during the game when, all right, we didn't get a goal from it, but the Raheem Sterling, who should have scored today, was not good in front of goal. It drops to him and he hits the post, outside of the post I think it was, and that's just a perfect example of that move you can look at where there is a numerical advantage that you see with Man City, that you see with Liverpool, that you see with a lot of good attacking teams, where you're helping your odds that one of those loose balls is going to fall in the right direction. Chelsea didn't take the opportunities when they fell to our players today, but I like that. I also liked, and this will get into our first goal, being more direct. I said this, variation in attack. Too often it's become passive side to side, and maybe we were guilty of that. I mean, Palace are a well-organised unit. I mean, it was very similar at times. That feeling of the game today was similar to what we had back in February, the last time we were at Selhurst Park, and another late winner that sort of crushed Palace's hearts on that day, when they maybe could have got a point and maybe could have won the game. You've got to vary it up, and I like the fact with Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, his ability to run in behind, but that move in particular is just so un-Chelsea-like for a number of reasons. Just hitting a ball forward, a knockdown from a centre-back, Thiago Silva, who's decided to stay up that high, and then Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, just striker instincts. I mean, a number 9 wearing a Chelsea shirt, just allowing the ball to come round his body and then just with his right foot swivel and volley it precisely into the bottom corner. I mean, it's a sort of quality that we just have not seen at Chelsea. And on the right, it's one goal, it's one moment from Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. He hasn't been overly dominant. But if he can provide that on a consistent basis for Chelsea, we'll be laughing at his age, I think. And that is something that has annoyed me at times watching Chelsea, is our lack of variation, our lack of risk taken on the ball. Those risks have consequences at times, as I just spoke about with the balance issue in central midfield. If you don't have players mobile enough to cover large areas of space and you lose the ball high up the pitch, there were a few occasions when Fofana would move forward with the ball and lose it, and then one ball would get hit behind. You know, I think that Potter has a couple profiles. We've heard about Trevor Chalobah being used as a defensive midfielder. Maybe he'll bring that up in the coming games, because I think he needs it if he wants to play a back four and he wants to be this kind of high pressing. He wants the team playing on the halfway line. You need more mobility in that centre of the park. It's not just about technical quality, and the idea we have to sort of have an exchange between the two, I think, is wrong. I think there absolutely could be a compromise there. A lot of it I think is recruitment that is going to have to come further down the line. But that's what I like, the fact that we were being more direct. And Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, he started today. I think a lot of us would have liked to see Breuer start, but when he starts and he scores like that in the Premier League, he justifies his start, and he justifies why you'd bring him in, and that kind of quality, that experience that he brought to the team. Big moment because it changes the complexion of the game. I know people will be shouting at me if they're not a Chelsea fan. Of course, we got very lucky that Thiago Silva didn't get sent off. It was one of those where VAR looks at it, but I think if Kavanagh had given a red to Silva, I don't think it would have been overturned. It's one of those, and I have seen things like that given like a straight red. I have in the past. All right, I can look at it on the replays and say maybe Ayew is moving away from the goal, and there were actually quite a few Chelsea defenders sprinting back on the other side. But I understand why some would feel aggrieved, because we have seen, I've seen not just in the Premier League, I've seen in like the Championship, League One, League Two, foreign leagues as well, where I've seen reds given for that, and he clearly puts his hand out. He knows what's happening. He knows he's in trouble. He doesn't have the speed to come back and stop that. And maybe Ayew with his speed just takes the ball and runs to a one-on-one with Kepa. But they didn't deem it that, and that's, again, I said this after West Ham, bad officiating doesn't make up for previously bad officiating, so there we go. And Chelsea get away with it, right? I think in the second half, as I said, I think that change with Jorginho, I think was just so important because there were too many. It felt too fragile to me with Chelsea. It felt like one ball could have been hit over the top and we could have been exposed. I think that helped Chelsea very much settle the game down and start moving it quicker, and just trying to create those overloads, trying to create a sense of control in the game that wasn't always there. And eventually, kind of when the game was feeling a bit passive and it felt like it generally was just drifting towards a draw, like it was back in February, we get this one moment of quality from Conor Gallagher, who comes off the bench. For a new coach, a sub coming on and scoring the goal. Conor's had a difficult start to life at Chelsea, but this new formation gives him, I think, a lot of opportunity, because you saw it there as kind of an attacking midfielder, as one of those kind of 210s, if Potter's looking for that, or one of those attacking midfielders at the edge of the box. He just adds that moment of inspiration. It is a stunning strike. In terms of moments that we just haven't seen, it's not one of those moments you look at and go, oh, that's a great piece of team play. It genuinely is an individual moment of class that at times, that unpredictability, that attacking maverick, I spoke about it over the summer, a player who is going to do things that break the mold of our system, or make the opponent guess a little bit more. You need players like that. You need players who take risks, and that was a risk take from Conor Gallagher. It could have just gone over the bar. The game ends 1-1. But his whole Chelsea career now looks a little bit different, does it? Or at least for the short term, you hope he gets more minutes. And for his confidence, for his feeling of being a Chelsea player, I think it's the same for Breuer in the coming weeks. They need these moments. And I was on the Chelsea podcast earlier this week and I spoke about players changing their destiny. And I think you saw it there. It gives Graham Potter his first win. We needed this. We needed the 3 points desperately. I just think the mood of the club, particularly after that Salzburg game and the gap we've had in games, hasn't been helped. And the doubts and concerns and the fear of what's coming from Chelsea with so much uncertainty and so much upheaval, these moments give you hope. And I think people hopefully now will look back at the performance and see some positives, as I say, some negatives defensively and in midfield that concern me for the long term. Maybe for the short term, hopefully in the long term they can be resolved, but it's still very early days, and it's still hard to judge because we need to see 10 games. And to be honest, at the end of this month, we're going to get pretty close. I think we have 9 games this month. So we're going to see a lot of what Graham Potter does with this squad. And I think that's a real positive because we start to see trends. We start to see maybe the shape of a team coming together. I understand it's not with Graham Potter as it was with Tuchel. It's not always going to be set on one system. We've gone from a 3 in the first game to a 4 today. Does he stick with that for AC Milan? We're not sure, and I think it may be a little bit naive of me to kind of rigidly go towards one because we know Potter is a very flexible coach. But to get this win, just in terms of it's there are tactical things and kind of personnel things that you can look at positively and negatively. But I just think the emotion and the feeling around Chelsea will be a lot more upbeat, at least for tonight, after a much needed win. Let me know your opinions. Man of the match, that's interesting. I do actually want to mention, I think Kai Havertz had a better game today. I really do. I think that he could have done a little bit better with a few of the chances he got, but I felt there was a little bit more drive about him. There are a few occasions in the first half where he just drives at the ball and curls a ball into trying to curl in the bottom corner. It unfortunately goes wide. There's a moment in the second half where he just, that change of pace that unfortunately we don't see enough from Havertz, that we see for Germany quite frequently. That's encouragement. I think Mount should have done better with his chances, but I think there is encouragement with him as well. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang scores. I think Reece James again kind of just completely shutting down Wilfried Zaha, so much so that Zaha had to go over to the other side in the second half, proves it. And I think Fofana and Silva got better as the game went on. I think in the first half they were a little bit shaky, not helped by a lack of protection and kind of a hole in front of them that Palace exploited consistently. But as I say, I know you guys will have positives and negatives. Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you again very soon. Follow me on Twitter. All the best.